ballroom smelled of overcooked lamb and Chanel No. 5. Pink satin ribbons clung to rented chairs, and the cake stood tall like it was nervous. There was a 4-piece jazz band in the corner, playing a version of At Last that didn't quite land. Near the back, next to the pillar with peeling gold trim, there was a man. Mid-40s, clean shave, charcoal suit that wasn't loud, but fit just right. His name was Darius Greene. He didn't look out of place, but no one saved him a chair. Not even her. He stood there for a while, shifting his weight from foot to foot, holding a thin envelope in his hand. It wasn't heavy with money, just a handwritten note and a card tucked inside. He always gave cards. That was his way. It was his cousin's wedding. A small-town event, but one of those weddings where everybody acted like they were in a movie. The bride cried on cue. The groom dabbed at his forehead with the exact kind of humble towel that made the auntie swoon. Darius finally spotted her. Mallory. She was standing near the champagne table, laughing at a story she wasn't listening to. Her dress was sleek, not new but loud. Red, strapless, slit too high for her own comfort. She liked pretending she didn't care what people thought, but her eyes were always scanning for approval. She saw him, finally, just a glance. Then she turned back to the conversation and whispered something into her friend's ear. That was all it took. The friend turned around, looked Darius up and down, then smirked, like he was the help, like he was someone's +1 who got the address wrong. The band kept playing. The photographer kept snapping. But Darius, he didn't move. Not yet. He stood still, watching her shoulders shake with laughter, remembering the quiet way she used to fall asleep on his chest. Back when their apartment had 2 mattresses on the floor and borrowed kitchen chairs. A boy brushed past him with a plate of fried chicken and macaroni salad. "Sorry, sir," the boy mumbled. Darius nodded, still holding the envelope, still standing, still no chair. Then Mallory's voice cut through the jazz. Not loud, but loud enough. "You can sit there," she said, waving vaguely toward the kids' table. "I think that chair's free." He didn't respond. She turned away before he could. The boy at the kids' table gave him a toothy grin. "You want the end seat, mister?" Darius gave a small smile, shook his head, and stepped outside instead. The cold caught him, sharp against his cheeks. It was late fall, Ohio chill, one of those evenings where you can smell the frost arriving before it lands. He tucked the envelope into his coat pocket and exhaled slowly. He looked up at the building, the string lights, the white drapes in the windows, the silhouettes dancing inside. And he thought, for the first time in a long time, maybe she never saw me at all. Not for what he was, not for what he was becoming, only for what he wasn't. A spotlight, a showman, a fast climber with loud shoes and a louder mouth. Darius had been building quietly for years, but it didn't come with applause. He wasn't flashy, didn't believe in fake it till you make it. He just made it, quietly, and yet here he was. A man without a seat at a wedding of people who used to borrow his charger, his tools, his couch. The door behind him creaked. He turned. A server stepped out, dragging on a vape and looking embarrassed. "Sorry, man," he said. "Not really sorry. Need a minute." Darius nodded. "All yours." He walked farther toward the parking lot, passing cars he recognized from back when he fixed their tires. Aunt Laverne's Hyundai, DeAndre's beat-up Accord, Mallory's leased SUV, still with the dealership frame. Before getting in his own car, he took the envelope back out. He opened it. Inside was a note. "You told me not to give you anything flashy, so I didn't, but I gave you everything else." He folded it neatly and set it on the dash. Then he started the engine. As he pulled away from the curb, he saw the marquee lights from the hall bounce off his rearview mirror like a last chance. But he didn't look back. Quiet signal of strength. That was the last event Darius attended where he wasn't seen. If the story touched something in you, share your city in the comments. Let's see how far quiet strength travels. The apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, but one was more of a glorified closet, and the heater knocked like it owed rent. Still, Darius had made it feel like something close to home. Plants on the windowsill, a chipped coffee mug full of pens. Sunday jazz coming through a Bluetooth speaker, just low enough not to disturb the neighbors. It was the kind of place built on patience. He was in the kitchen, jotting down the grocery list. Milk, eggs, rice, the cheap kind of cereal she liked with the off-brand cartoon tiger. He always tried to pick out the things she liked before she asked. "Why are you writing it down?" Mallory asked, walking in barefoot, her silk robe barely tied. "You always forget the list at home anyway." He smiled. "That's why I take a picture after." New habit. She walked to the fridge, pulled out the orange juice, took a sip from the bottle like it owed her something, then put it back without screwing the lid. "You're getting the off-brand again, aren't you?" she said, leaning on the counter. "It's $3 cheaper, Mal tastes the same, just doesn't have a pretty font." She rolled her eyes. "You're so scared of spending money, it's like you think we'll never make any." Darius folded the paper quietly. He didn't argue. He just glanced at the fridge door. The utility bill stuck up there with a magnet shaped like a shoe. "You're acting like we're broke." He didn't answer right away. He wasn't broke, but he was building. Every dollar was spoken for. Not just rent and food, but the side project he worked on in the garage. The late-night coding, the quiet research, the LLC paperwork he filed without fanfare. Mallory didn't ask much about it. She liked the results, not a process. "I'm not scared of money," he said calmly. "I'm just not scared of starting slow." She smirked. "Sounds like something broke people say." Then she grabbed the folded paper from the counter and tossed it back at him. It fluttered in the air, landing on the floor next to his boots. "Go ahead and get your little list," she said. "Just don't bring back that off-brand peanut butter again. Tastes like glue." He knelt down, picked up the paper, and tucked it into his back pocket. His face didn't change, but something inside him did. Not in a big, loud way. It wasn't rage or heartbreak, just a click, like a key turning in a lock. A shift that said, "She doesn't see it. She doesn't see me." She didn't see the way he was stacking hours between shifts. The slow stacking of skill, trust, discipline. The kind of man who fixed the Wi-Fi without making it a moment. Who scraped paint off the hallway trim so they wouldn't lose the deposit. Who watched her favorite reality shows just to hear her laugh, even when he didn't get the jokes. He was quiet, but not small, and that difference she couldn't see. Later that night, Darius sat alone at the small table. Groceries on the counter. He'd bought the name-brand peanut butter, just for peace. But he also bought two things she hadn't noticed before. A notebook and a receipt scanner. He opened the notebook and wrote on the first line, "Plan, Phase 1, 2 clients by June. Keep nights free. Build a portfolio. Stack testimonials. No shortcuts. The kind of goals you don't tweet about. You don't announce it to friends. You just keep moving quietly." Mallory passed behind him, scrolling on her phone. She didn't ask what he was writing. She didn't look at the scanner or the little box of receipts beside it. She just reached for the peanut butter and said, "Finally." That night, they fell asleep in silence. She faced the window. He faced the wall. In between them, a thin line of unmet expectations and growing clarity. Quiet signal of strength. He stopped trying to prove his plan made sense. He just followed it. It was late winter when he showed her. The snow hadn't fallen yet, but the air had that gray taste to it, dry and tired. The kind of cold that reminded you of how long the month of February could feel when nothing in your life was changing fast enough. Darius had just finished a double shift, his boots still dusty with salt from the sidewalk. He walked into the apartment quietly, trying not to wake her. But she wasn't asleep. She was watching some reality show with the volume turned low, curled under a throw blanket she never folded. She looked up when he came in. "You're late," she said, not angry, just flat, like she wasn't surprised. "Yeah," he said, setting down his bag. "One of the new guys called out. I covered it." She turned back to the screen, barely reacting. A contestant on the TV was crying over a burned risotto. "I finally did it," he said after a moment. She looked over again. What? He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a neatly folded sheet of paper. It was creased in quarters, but the lines were straight. He handed it to her with the kind of quiet excitement people have when they're offering something they built with their own hands. She opened it. Read the top line, then let out a soft, sharp laugh. Wait, this is your resume. Darius didn't say anything at first, just nodded. She skimmed it with the same expression she wore when reading the back of a cereal box. You're applying for what again? Freelance operations consulting, he said. Small businesses. Warehouses, local logistics. I've already helped 2 places streamline. She cut in. Darius, baby, you really think they're going to pay you for this? Like, real money? He stayed still. She kept reading, pausing to mimic one of the phrases. Optimized vendor coordination through manual forecasting. That sounds like you made a spreadsheet. He didn't laugh. He didn't flinch. I did, and it saved a business $6,000 in a quarter. Okay, she said, folding the paper like it was a joke. But this kind of thing, I mean, come on. Who do you know that does this? You really think people are just out here hiring guys with no degree to consult? He took the paper back, not snatching it, just taking it like someone retrieving something dropped in the mud. She wasn't being cruel, not intentionally. But that was the thing about Mallory. Her doubt didn't scream. Aside, it sounded like logic, like realism. But it chipped away at dreams like acid on soft stone. He'd spent 3 months putting that resume together. Every word was real. Every number backed up. He sat down at the table, unfolded the paper, and smoothed it out again. Like maybe if he looked at it long enough, it would mean more. Maybe if he just believed harder. Her voice wouldn't echo in his head when he sent it out. Mallory walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and sighed again. Did you forget the oat milk? He didn't answer. She didn't wait for one. That night, he stayed up after she went to bed. Laptop open. Resume glowing on the screen. Cursor blinking like it was daring him to press send. He adjusted 1 bullet point, then 2, then stopped, and finally hit submit on a small business forum he'd been lurking on for 6 weeks. Post went up. Quiet, careful, real. Experienced warehouse manager now offering freelance logistics consulting. No fluff, just results. 2 references available upon request. Will work evenings and weekends. The first client gets 30% off. Let's build something that lasts. He stared at the post for a minute. No likes, no replies, just silence. But something in that silence felt better than her applause ever did. Because it was his. Flashback, inserted briefly. He remembered something his grandfather used to say when Darius was a kid. Most people won't laugh at your dream. They'll squint at it like it's too small to read. That's worse. Don't let them make you fold it up. So he didn't. He left it out. Right there on the table. A creased resume next to a cup of cold coffee. And a man sitting in the middle of doubt, not trying to silence it, just outlasting it. Quiet signal of strength. Her laugh didn't stop him. It focused him. The coffee tasted like dishwater. And the waitress kept calling everyone baby. It was the kind of diner that never closed, not out of customer demand, but because the owner didn't believe in locks. They always came here when they didn't want to talk too much. The booths were high-backed. The lighting was tired. And the music, always something soft and forgettable, made it easy to sit in silence without it feeling rude. Mallory stirred her creamer in slow circles. Darius watched the clock behind her head tick past 8:07. Neither of them had touched their food. Her eggs were cooling under a film of yolk. His pancakes were starting to dry out around the edges. It wasn't a date. It wasn't an argument. It was something in between. She broke first. Do you ever feel like we're just dragging this? Darius looked at her. She didn't meet his eyes, just kept stirring. I mean, she went on, you're good, Darius. You really are. Like good. You're solid, dependable, steady. She finally looked up. That's the problem. He didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't try to defend himself. She hated that about him. How he never gave her a dramatic scene to push against. How he let her words land without raising his voice. "I need more," she said. "I need fire, risk, something that makes my heart beat faster." He folded his hands. "You think I don't?" She leaned back, exhaled. "You're too good for me, Darius." He stared at her for a long second. Then, quietly, "That's not what this is." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "That's not what you're saying," he replied. "You're not saying I'm too good. You're saying I'm not flashy enough. I don't play the game you want to win." Mallory looked out the window. The parking lot lights buzzed like old neon. "There's no crime in wanting more," she said. "There's no crime in not needing a spotlight," he said. They sat in that strange, respectful silence. Like two people who finally saw each other clearly, but only now that the furniture was already being moved out. He reached for his wallet. She shook her head. "I'll get it." "No," he said simply. "Let me." As he slid the check across the table, she looked down at the receipt. "Even now," she said, almost laughing, "you're still doing the right thing." Darius gave a small shrug. "Maybe it's not about right or wrong," he said. "Maybe it's just about real." Outside, the wind had picked up. He opened her door, not to be polite, but because it was stuck and needed a certain push from the bottom. He knew how to do that. She slid in without a word. Before he closed the door, she looked up at him. Her voice is softer now. "I do hope you make it." He nodded once. "I will, whether you see it or not." He walked to his own car with steady steps. It didn't hurt the way heartbreak usually does. It didn't bleed. It just cleared, like a fog lifting from the windshield after months of driving blind. He sat in the driver's seat, looking at his hands. The same hands that fixed broken microwaves and lugged boxes for extra hours. The same hands that once held her back when she cried about student loans and built her IKEA dresser without a single missing screw. Those hands weren't flashy, but they were enough. He turned the key. The engine started without a struggle. Same as him. Quiet signal of strength. She walked away thinking she told him the truth. But the truth was what he heard, and what he decided to build from it. The days after Mallory moved out were quiet. Not the kind of quiet that hurts. Not the silence of absence. The kind that lets a man breathe. She left behind a few things. A curling iron, a single gold hoop earring on the bathroom sink, and a bottle of almond milk Darius knew she was never coming back from. He tossed that first. The bed looked bigger without her, but not emptier. And in the spaces where her voice used to live, the sighs, the rolling eyes, the snide jokes she passed off as playful, something else began to grow. Focus. Darius worked 2 jobs. One at the warehouse, steady as ever. The other, quieter. Freelance contracts. One startup out in Dayton needed help reorganizing their storage system. Another in Cleveland wanted advice on streamlining deliveries. These weren't flashy companies. No glossy Instagram pages. Just small businesses trying to stay afloat. And they paid him. On time. He kept a spreadsheet for every cent. Rent. Paid. Utilities. Paid. Debt. Shrinking. By April, he had enough to stop asking for more shifts at the warehouse. He didn't quit. Not yet. But he started saying no to Sundays. He used those hours to write better pitches. To refine his process. To call past clients and ask gently if they'd mind writing a short testimonial. He bought a whiteboard from a secondhand store. Propped it against the wall in his living room. Wrote 3 goals on it. 5 clients by summer. Website up by July. Save $5,000 by the end of the year. There were no dream big quotes written in cursive. Just bullet points. And every day he erased one small task and replaced it with a completed one. The building's landlord was a woman named Mrs. Haddock. Late 60s. Lived on the 3rd floor. Kept a ceramic frog outside her door that held a sign reading, "I told Al I love spring." She noticed. "You've been early with the rent," she said one afternoon as she passed him on the stairs. Darius nodded. Trying to stay ahead. She adjusted her scarf. Peered at him. "You all right?" "I'm better than I've been," She smiled like she believed him. By June, the old couch he and Mallory had argued on was gone. He sold it and used the money to buy a new desk. Nothing fancy, just solid wood, secondhand again, but with deep drawers and a surface big enough for 2 monitors and a stack of notebooks. He cleared a corner of the living room and called it the office. No sign on the door, no announcement, just a shift in energy. When his first retainer client signed a 3-month deal, he didn't post about it. He didn't even tell his coworkers. He just opened a new envelope, slipped the check inside, and walked it to the bank. One night, in late July, Darius made spaghetti. The good kind, with mushrooms and garlic and the Parmesan he used to skip because it felt like a luxury. He poured 1 glass of red wine, ate slowly, jazz in the background. The window cracked open, letting in the soft hum of crickets. That night, he found the earring Mallory left behind. He didn't flinch. He placed it in a small plastic bag, labeled it Miscellaneous 2023, and slid it into the back of a drawer. Not to hold on, just not to pretend it never happened. Then he opened his laptop, typed out a draft for a local partnership proposal, finished a client report, and went to bed tired but proud. No one is watching, and that's when the work got better. More honest, more useful, more him. Quiet signal of strength. The world didn't clap for the months he showed up, but they added up anyway. The auditorium was filled with noise. Not the kind that hurts your ears, the kind that swells. The kind that makes everyone stand a little straighter. Rows of folding chairs, polished floors, a makeshift stage dressed up with fake greenery, and a podium that leaned slightly to the left. A banner stretched above the stage, printed in bold serif font, "Women in Business." Leading loudly. Darius didn't belong there. At least, not according to the registration table. When he showed up, his name wasn't on the list. The woman checking badges asked if he was delivering something. He smiled. "No, ma'am. Just here to listen." She blinked, then gave him a general guest pass. He took a seat near the back. Last row, far right. Nobody notices you back there unless you cough. Darius didn't cough. The event was well organized. Polished speakers, local news coverage, a few corporate sponsors. Everyone wore confidence like it was a color-coordinated accessory. And then Mallory took the stage. He didn't flinch. He knew she was headlining. That's why he came. She stood in heels too high for her comfort, wearing a sleek blazer the shade of television confidence. Her hair was tied back, neat, severe, intentional. She looked different. Not older, not colder, just curated. The woman who once rolled her eyes at his spreadsheets was now speaking about metrics of impact. She walked across the stage like she owned it, spoke like she'd been coached, hit every keyword: empowerment, vision, scaling, visibility. The crowd nodded. Darius watched, but he didn't nod, because he knew what was missing. She told the story of her business, an online branding consultancy. Talk about grit, talk about grind. Never mentioned the night she cried on the kitchen floor because a client ghosted her. Never mentioned the marketing course he paid for, or the website he helped her set up on a borrowed laptop. Not once. To them, she was a woman who had always known how to win. But he remembered the woman who once said, "You're too cautious, Darius. You don't think like a boss." And here she was now, using language she once called corny, telling a story she'd edited like a highlight reel. She mentioned a former partner vaguely. "He was kind," she said, "but we wanted different things." The audience smiled, but Darius sat still, because he was kind, and he did want different things. Things that lasted, things that didn't need applause. After the keynote, they served hors d'oeuvres in the lobby. Little toothpicked olives, miniature quiches, iced lemon water in mason jars. Darius didn't mingle. He stood near the corner, beside the coat rack. Quiet. Mallory passed within 10 feet of him. Didn't notice, or pretended not to. Either way, he didn't move. He just watched her from the corner of the room, watched the way people leaned in when she spoke. The way she talked with her hands now, something she used to say was too dramatic. I watched the brand she built bloom around her, and he nodded to himself. She'd made something. He didn't have to love the way she told the story, but he respected that she'd kept building. Even if she used scaffolding made from things she once dismissed. He left before anyone asked him who he was. Slipped out the back entrance. Got in his car. Turned on the radio. Low jazz, as always, and rested both hands on the steering wheel. He didn't feel regret. I didn't feel jealous. Just stillness. Like something had settled. At the next red light, he pulled out his phone. Opened his email. There was a message waiting from the founder of a local logistics company. Subject line, "Saw your latest blog post? Are you open to consulting?" He smiled. Tapped reply. Wrote 3 words. "Let's talk Monday." Put the phone down. Drove home. He didn't need to be on the stage. I didn't need the microphone. Because sometimes the most powerful seat is the one in the last row. The one no one saved for you. And sometimes the most powerful story is the one that never had to be rewritten. Quiet signal of strength. He saw her shine, and knew it didn't dim his own light to let her have the spotlight. It used to be a dry cleaner's. The kind with faded posters in the window and a bell that never rang when the door opened. For years, the storefront sat quiet, shutters drawn halfway like tired eyelids. People passed by without a second glance. Then one Tuesday in late September, the shutters were gone. The windows cleaned. The dust inside swept out. No sign. No grand opening. No balloons, no banner. No post on local Facebook groups. Just a quiet man in dark jeans and a navy sweatshirt, unloading secondhand shelves from a rented U-Haul. Darius. He didn't tell anyone. Not even his barber. The lease was month to month. Tucked in his glove box with a signed check and a page of notes. The building manager barely asked questions. I just wanted someone quiet who paid on time. Perfect fit. Darius brought in his folding table first. Then the whiteboard. Then a coffee machine, a plant that didn't need much sun, and the same desk he'd used in his apartment, the one with the deep drawers and worn edges. He placed it in the middle of the room like it mattered. Because it did. This wasn't just a workspace. It was a line in the sand. By the end of the week, he'd installed 2 refurbished monitors, 1 clean printer, and a simple lockbox for cash receipts. Still no sign on the door. Not because he forgot. Because he was watching. Watching who walked past. Who lingered. Which neighbors slowed down near the window. Which delivery drivers looked twice. Who peered in. It became a kind of soft test. The first knock came on a Wednesday. A woman in her 60s, short bob, wearing scrubs. "You open?" she asked, glancing past his shoulder. Darius nodded. She stepped inside, looking around. "What is this?" He smiled. "Operations and logistics help. For small businesses." She raised an eyebrow. "Like?" "Inventory systems. Scheduling workflows. Vendor contracts. Basically, I help things run better." She squinted. "I run a small clinic. We're drowning in paperwork." "You do medical stuff?" He tilted his head. "I do human stuff. We can start there." She smiled. They talked for 20 minutes. She left with a handwritten quote and an appointment. By the end of the month, he had 3 clients. No website, just referrals. He'd meet them early, before the sun came up, or late, after their storefronts closed. He adjusted to their rhythm, wrote everything by hand first, made sure every proposal had numbers that made sense. No buzzwords, just clear language and real solutions. People liked that, trusted it. Across the street, a bakery posted flyers about a holiday cookie workshop. A barber set up a Halloween skeleton in his chair. Darius? Still no sign, but his name was being spoken, quietly. "You know that guy with the clean windows and no sign? He helped fix our delivery schedule. He's the one who built that dashboard from scratch. We saved $1,200 this quarter." He answers his phone. Every time. One day, a teenager knocked on the glass, held up a resume, asked if he was hiring. Darius shook his head, then paused. "Come back Monday. Let's talk." Some nights, he sat on the step outside, sipping coffee from a chipped mug, just watching. The city wasn't fast here. The streets didn't shine. But there was movement, honest, steady movement. People doing the best they could with what they had. He belonged here. He still didn't put up a sign. Not yet. He was building something stronger first. Reputation. One receipt at a time. One answered email. One referral. Not everyone needs to know where you are. Just the ones who matter. Quiet signal of strength. The louder he worked, the less noise he made. And still they came. Came on a Thursday. Late morning. The kind of day when the rain didn't fall, but the sky stayed gray. Like it couldn't decide whether to commit. Darius was at his desk, reviewing a shipping audit for a neighborhood bookstore. The room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and the oatmeal cookie he'd just warmed in the microwave. His inbox pinged. Subject line, Re. Brand Metrics last quarter review. The name at the top? Mallory. He stared at it for a moment, blinking, waiting, wondering if maybe it was a newsletter, or a list blast, or maybe she was reaching out intentionally. Years had passed after all. But then he opened it, and saw the first line. Hey girl, sending this over for your review. Do not forward this to anyone. I need advice ASAP before the 3 p.m. call. Attached, a PDF marked internal. Below it, a long, unfiltered email thread. One she clearly didn't mean to send to him. Darius leaned back in his chair. He didn't open the attachment at first. He just read the message again. There was no, "Hi Darius." No, "How have you been?" No subject-specific greeting. No context. Just a mistake. When he finally clicked on the PDF, it opened with a stutter. Like it too didn't want to be seen. It was a report. 6 pages. Her quarterly client metrics. The numbers weren't good. Brand engagement, down. Conversion rates, erratic. High churn. Negative feedback on communication delays. One of the comments in red stood out. Great vision, but follow-through inconsistent. Strategy feels templated. Darius exhaled. It wasn't that he wanted her to fail, but something about that line, strategy feels templated. It echoed something she used to say about his work, that it was too basic, too careful, too boring. And yet here she was, drowning in noise. All styles, no root, running a brand without a foundation. He closed the document. Didn't respond, didn't forward, didn't even delete. He just let it sit there, unopened to the world, but fully seen by him. That night, he walked 2 blocks to the corner laundromat, folded his clothes with quiet care. The attendant, Mr. Klein, waved and asked if business was still good. Better, Darius said, and meant it. His world was small, but it was steady. His calendar was full, but never frantic. Clients paid on time. Deadlines were respected. Solutions delivered. There was no drama, no applause, no image to maintain, just impact. Back at the office, he sat at his desk and wrote a blog post. Title, What Happens When You Build Without an Audience? He didn't mention her, not even indirectly, but he wrote about the pressure to perform. About how easy it is to chase visibility over value. How building loud can sometimes leave you hollow. How growth rooted in real service, not perception, is slow but unshakable. By morning, it had been shared 18 times. One client forwarded it to their vendor partner. Another emailed him a single sentence. You put words to something I've been afraid to admit. He smiled, not because of the clicks, but because it confirmed what he already knew. He'd been right to build quietly. 3 days later, Mallory emailed again. This time, intentionally. Hey Darius, I think I sent you something by mistake last week. Totally meant for someone else. Hope you're well. He replied, No worries. Wishing you clarity and peace in all you're building. No shade, no sarcasm, no attachment, just closure. Real closure. He didn't mention that he knew the report was bad. He didn't hint at the old conversations. Didn't say, I told you so, because he didn't need to. The silence was enough. Quiet signal of strength. The version of him she once dismissed was now the version she accidentally turned to without even knowing it. It had taken over the corner unit of the old drugstore. High ceilings, exposed brick, matte black light fixtures. Plants hung from steel rods like the place was breathing. The floors were polished concrete, and the walls carried the hum of soft indie soul. The new coffee shop had no name printed on the door, just a symbol, a small circle broken by a single horizontal line. Subtle, intentional. People asked about it. Baristas shrugged, but the regulars knew. It was Darius's place. The idea started as a joke. One of his clients, a baker, told him he should open a cafe where people could get clarity and caffeine in one cup. He laughed. But then he thought about it. He already had the logistics nailed. He knew supply chains, labor schedules, inventory, and space planning. All he needed was a team and a story, so he built it the same way he built everything. Quietly, he partnered with a local roaster, hired 2 employees with solid references and no online drama, brought in a friend who loved interiors but hated corporate work. 6 months later, the doors opened. No ad, no post. Just a soft open sign that said, "We're here." Mallory walked in on a Monday. The bells above the door jingled once. She wore a blazer again. Not the expensive kind. Just neat, crisp. Her heels clicked too loudly against the floor. She didn't recognize the barista. I didn't know the music. Didn't expect the prices. She glanced at the chalkboard menu. Espresso, $4 pour over, $6 clarity latte, $7. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Darius watched from the hallway behind the counter. Not hiding, just observing, like he always did. She stood at the counter hesitating, then pulled out her card. "I'll have the clarity latte." The barista, a quiet young woman named Noelle, nodded, took her name, and keyed in the order. The card reader blinked, waited. Mallory tapped, declined. She frowned, tapped again, declined. She looked at the screen, then at Noelle. "Oh, that's weird. Must be the wrong card." She fumbled in her bag, pulled another one. This time, Noelle didn't say anything. Just wait. Second card. Declined. Silence. Noelle said gently, "Would you like to try a different payment method?" Mallory froze. Something in her eyes shifted, like a string had been pulled too tight and finally snapped. She reached for her phone. "Let me just check something." Then Darius stepped out from behind the hallway. Mallory turned. The color drained from her face. He wore dark jeans, a white tee under a navy cardigan. Nothing flashy, but grounded, solid. His name tag simply read, DG. She hadn't seen him in years. I didn't know what to say. He nodded once, then turned to Noelle. "It's on the house." Mallory opened her mouth, closed it. "No, I can." "It's all right," he said, calm, steady, unbothered. She lowered her voice. "I didn't know this was yours." "I know." Her eyes flicked to the counter, then the floor. "This is a beautiful space. Thanks." A long pause. "Didn't think coffee was your thing." "It wasn't," he said, "until I made it mine." She took the cup gently when it came. Noelle had drawn a single leaf in the foam. Mallory cradled it like it might burn her. Before walking out, she turned back. "You always did like building things quietly," she said, half smiling. He didn't reply, didn't need to. After she left, Noelle looked up. "Old friend." Darius shrugged. "Something like that. X." He nodded once, then went back to the back room. He didn't tell anyone what happened. I didn't write about it. Didn't include it in his next blog post. Didn't mention it to clients or staff or even to himself when the shop closed that night. But in the quiet after last call, when he cleaned the counter and flipped the chairs, he thought about her face. The shock, the silence, the recognition. She'd walked in expecting to sell herself. Maybe pitch services, maybe offered a partner, maybe just hoping someone in charge would notice her again. She didn't know the man in charge had already moved on. Quiet signal of strength. She came looking for an opportunity. He gave her kindness and let her walk away. She came back 6 weeks later. Darius didn't see her walk in this time. Didn't even know she was there until he heard the pause in Noelle's voice at the counter. He was finishing up a walkthrough in the back room, adjusting a shipment schedule on the whiteboard. There were notes everywhere, clipped invoices, schedules, a printed-out graph that showed steady growth in profit margins. Noelle's voice carried softly, "Can I help you find someone?" Then a reply, just as soft, "I'm just looking." Mallory had come in wearing all black. Hair pulled back, simple gold earrings. The loud version of her was gone. No heels, no oversized bag, no sales pitch on her tongue. She wasn't there for coffee this time. She was scanning the room like she was walking through someone else's story. She paused near the community board, business cards, local events, a flyer for a youth coding class Darius had quietly sponsored. Then she saw the side hallway. The door is slightly open. Curiosity pulled her forward. The office wasn't large, just a narrow rectangle, a desk, 2 chairs, and a bookshelf with binders lined like spines in a careful back. No fanfare, and yet the moment she stepped in, she stopped cold. On the wall, above the desk, hung a framed photo. It wasn't the picture that struck her, it was the timing. Darius, standing in front of that same building where she once told him he was too safe. Same smile, same face. Only now the plaque behind him read, Greene Operations and Company. Below it, another frame, a letter from the Chamber of Commerce, recognized for transformative impact in local small business development. And beside that, a small printout of a blog post. One line highlighted in gold. "You don't need to be louder than them. You just need to last longer." She stood there, blinking, then sat down in the chair across from the desk. She didn't know why. She just needed to sit. The hum of the espresso machine drifted in from the hallway. Somewhere outside, a train rattled far off, low and steady. Everything in the room was quiet, still, solid. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a business card. It was hers. New branding. Clean font. On the back, a handwritten note. "I think I lost my way. If you ever need support or want to collaborate, I'd be honored." Clearly yet. And sometimes, by the time they do, you're already too far ahead to circle back. Quiet signal of strength. She left behind a card. He left behind the need to be seen by her. It was just before 6. The street was still sleeping, wrapped in fog and the hum of power lines. Darius stepped out of his apartment, thermos in hand, coat zipped halfway, keys tucked into his glove. The cold touched his skin but didn't reach him. Across the tracks, the 6:12 train rolled in like it always did. Not loud, not late, just steady. He stood there for a moment, watching the cars glide past. Their windows glowing yellow like moving memories. Same station, same bench, same platform where he used to sit wondering if anything would ever change. Now he just stood, not waiting, not chasing, just grounded. Inside his coat pocket was a folded piece of paper. Not a business card, not a resume, just a note to himself. One line, "Keep showing up." He smiled, almost laughed, then took a sip of coffee. It was too hot, but that was fine. Back in his office, the blinds were still drawn. The chairs are still stacked. No sign on the door. Still. And yet, they found him. They always would. Because when a man moves with quiet purpose, the world notices eventually. Even if some only see it from the sidelines. If you've ever been told you were too good, too kind, too quiet, too careful, don't change your shape to fit their sight. Let them blink. You just keep building.